honor to my apostles and elders of Great Millstone, who I learned the truth from, who teach them real well, teaching 100% truth. And peace, love, blessings, and salutations to all the sincere Akim and Akwaf that are listening in on this truth, pushing in this truth, trying to make that call, never let sure. And shalom to the brothers that's pushing this truth throughout the four corners of the earth. And shalom to the hopeful elect. May the call of election be upon our homes. All right, shalom, shalom. The brother Quanah Waf from the GMS Columbus, Georgia camp, coming back at you with another lesson through the spirit and power of Yahweh Hashem Yahweh Shah. Just real quick, just want to go into the spirit of this lesson that something that's been on my spirit for ultimately a few days now, in the spirit that's permitted me to do this lesson, which I titled the lesson, "The Lord is always watching," and it's something that being in this faith and in this truth, we got to always consider. And, that's like one big thing that I know brothers down here and I can't push, from the heads, on down, in particular the head brothers, always pushing, to be sincere, be sincere, and just do in sincerity and dealing in this truth, man, because how about Shem Shah is always watching, man. The Lord is always looking at everything we doing, how we moving, how we conducting ourselves, how we living, all these things, man. And if you ain't moving, operating in the right spirit, within this truth, man, how about Shem Shah can easily remove any one of us, And just like the scriptures say, it says that the eyes of the Lord are 10,000 times brighter than the sun, beholding all the ways of men. You see, even the most secret spots. So there's no way in this truth that you can never think that you getting one over on the Lord, or, getting by on the Lord, or don't see you. That's why we got to be in fear. We got to be in fear in how we moving out here, and our decision making, how we carrying ourselves, all these things. Because at the end of the day, if you're not doing something in sincerity, or you're not really living what you're preaching, or you just, as brothers like to say, living a double life, where you claiming you in the truth, but behind closed doors you doing stuff. And it's only a matter of time before Yahweh Shah gonna call you out, because the Lord, again, is always watching, man. It's like loud ass cars taking a little walk. But yeah, because the Lord is always watching, so it's nothing that we can get over on the Lord, man. That's why we gotta deal uprightly. That's why we gotta be, living these scriptures out and applying these things to our life, to the best of our ability, man. Because just like a scripture that the brother put in earlier this week, and even when you go into it in the book of Tobit, it tell you about the angel, I believe it was Raphael, he was telling Tobit, when you was, doing all those good works and doing all those deeds, I was there and I was watching you, man. Because the Lord always got the angels watching. The Lord always watching, because the angels don't sleep. The Lord don't sleep, man. They always watching, always round the clock, seeing and witnessing everything and beholding all the ways of men. That's why, again, as we deal in our day-to-day life, we got to be making sure that we doing what's pleasing to Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shah, and not displeasing, man, and not carrying on as a person of this world, man. As a 2/3, or just, we one way when we around brothers, but then we get in our own personal life, we dealing a whole different way, that's not corresponding with the truth. You being a nigga, you see, or you ain't living up to that talk that you talk when you're doing them videos or when you're around brothers, man. We can't be like that, because that's what you consider a hypocrite. And the Lord hates hypocrites, man. You see? And the Lord is always watching you. So at the end of the day, you can pull one over a brother's eyes, you can try to get over on brothers, but one person you can't get over on is the Lord, man. You can't get over on Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shah. And I don't care how hard you try or think you will, it ain't gonna happen, man. At the end of the day, it ain't gonna happen. These people got spirits on them. It just ain't gonna happen, man. So we gotta keep that in mind, because the scriptures say that it's nothing that is hid that shall not be revealed. So it's nothing that you can hide from the Lord or try to, get one over on the Lord that ain't gonna be brought to light. And that's why you see a lot of guys that eventually fall out, or anybody, but as you be having these women bugging out, calling themselves, leaving the faith. You see so many of that with the L down there in South Carolina. A lot of those response videos he do. Be having women too speaking about how they was once a Hebrew Israelite and this, that, and the third. But ultimately speaking to the men, because we know the scriptures say, unto you men I've called, you know, 'cause these, they, hey, man, deal with them. They learn. If they learn, should learn anything. Should be from their man at home. But ultimately speaking to, brothers, men that, you see falling out and getting weak and different things of that nature. Ultimately because, it's something in their day-to-day life or in their personal life that they're not attacking spirits or, not being observant or just, doing something that's not pleasing to Yahweh Shem Yahushua. And the Lord, ultimately puts the scope on it and call it out. And we don't want to be one of those individuals. I know personally with myself, I don't want to be without this truth, man. Because without this truth, we're nothing. Without this truth, we don't have no hedge, we don't have no protection, we don't have no covering, man. So we want to do everything that we can to stand in this thing and remember, that the Lord is always watching, man. You see? That's why with knowing that should keep us in constant fear of wanting to do what's pleasing to Yahweh Shem Yahushua at all times, man. And making sure we're moving in the right spirit, making sure we're being brothers to brothers. Because we know that's one thing that the Lord requires more than anything, man. That's something that Yahweh Shah requires more than anything, is that we be brotherly. Because Yahweh Shah himself was brotherly, man. That's how he carried and conducted himself, when he was on the scene, man. He washed the disciples' feet, was a servant unto men. Even though he was the Lord, he was the Messiah, he had spiritual power and all these things. The scripture say he still made himself in the form of a servant, which ultimately, was humbled himself, man. And that's how we got to be in this, man. Humble, not just to pretend or put on like it, but really applying it, man, and really applying the fruits of the spirit, man. Meekness, patience. We definitely got to continue to remain patient, because the more that we go down to the end of this road, man, getting to the end of, the end times, man, the more that these demons and these tests going to increase, intensify. So we got to be being more patient and more resilient than ever, applying the spirit, fasting, praying, doing whatever we got to do, man, that we can continue to stay in this thing, man. Because if not, these spirits, these demons overtake you, choke you out, and you'll find yourself on the outside looking in. And we don't want to be that, man. Because again, I'm gonna keep repeating it. The Lord is always watching, man. You see, and the Lord don't make no mistakes, and the Lord don't miss a beat. The Lord don't miss nothing, man. So don't never think in your mind or get in your spirit that you're doing something and the Lord don't see it, man. You see, that's why, again, we constantly have to be in fear of that, man. And understand if your fear, how about Shem Yahushua is faded, man. That's why we got to constantly examine ourselves. You feel like you're losing the fear, or you doing things that the spirit, the spirit don't require, pray to your how about Shem Yahushua, to increase his fear upon you, man. To keep that fear upon you, because once you lose that fear, at that point you're not gonna care what you do. You see, because the fear is not there. But when you fear your how about Shem Yahushua, you're gonna make sure you're doing the necessary things and doing what's right, as in what's pleasing to him, man. And you ain't gonna allow yourself to be thrown off your square. You're not gonna allow yourself to be overtaken. You see, you're gonna apply the fruits of the spirit. And that's what it's all about at the end of the day, man. Applying the fruits of the spirit and staying vigilant. Because as the scriptures say, our adversary the devil like a roaring lion walking about, seeking whom he may devour, man. These spirits always out here. You got Esau out here, trying to bring false witnesses and accusations against brothers. People like your vocab Malones and all these different things. And this is all just according to prophecy, things we got to go through. But that's why we got to be having our spiritual armory, built up, and putting on the breastplate of faith, the helmet of salvation, that spiritual army, that spiritual armor, so that we can continue to fight, man, and fight against the wiles of the devil and fight against these things. Because if you're not, you see, ultimately when these different tribulations, and things are brought upon you, you're going to ultimately wither away. You're going to ultimately get faint because you're not, being engulfed in the spirit, but you're being engulfed in the flesh, and the Lord see it, man. You see? Because again, the eyes of the Lord are 10,000 times brighter than the sun, man. He beholding all the ways of men. He see everything. You see? There's nothing that we getting past on the Lord that he don't see. And we want the Lord to be noticing us for doing things that's pleasing unto him, man. You see, noticing us for good works. You see, being a good servant, not being an evil, malicious, wicked, you see, bad servant, man. Doing things in envy, strife, contention, being covetous. No, none of these things that the Lord hate. Because the Lord gave us the guidelines on the things that he hate, just like he gave us the guidelines on the things that he love. And we want to do the things that, please the Lord, man. You see? Not that make him want to bring wrath upon us and ultimately kick us out of this truth. Because if you get kicked out of this truth and you lose the faith, hey, that's a wrap, at that point. And you can't come back from that, man. You see? Unless, hey, how you doing? How y'all doing? Unless Yahweh Shem Yahushua have mercy on you, man. But other than that, hey, we don't even want to test those waters, man. We don't even want to be put in those different type of situations. So we want to just make sure that we just doing what we can, observing these times, and realizing that the Lord has always got his eyes on us, man. You see, and not losing that fear, because the scriptures say that the fear of the Lord, a deliverer from wrath, deliverer from death. You see, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom and knowledge. You see, that fear is what's important, man. And if you fear Yahweh Shem Yahushua, you're gonna be mindful of the things that you do, the things that you say, and the way of how you conduct yourself when you're going in your day-to-day life, man. You see, and you're not gonna be out here just willingly doing what you want to do, like 2/3 of our people living like the people in this world, man. You see, you're gonna be considerate, So I just want to bring that out real quick, just a quick exhortation through the Spirit. I pray that Yahweh Shem Yahushua, continue to be with all you brothers and sisters out there, you Akim Wow, and keeping, brothers in the faith as we see and we getting down to these, last of the days, man. Times, are ultimately shortening it up each and every day. And we just want to make sure we stand in the right spirit, man. We don't want to be, finding ourselves on the outside of this thing looking in. So continue in the faith, remember the Lord always watching you, man. The Lord has always got the scope on each and every one of us, so it's nothing that is hid that the Lord don't see. So just, live sincere in your life, and just do what's pleasing, man. And you'll be, and you can't go wrong doing that. So I pray and hope this lesson was edifying through the Spirit and power of Yahweh Shem Yahushua. And I would like to close out giving all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh Shem Yahushua, Shem Kakwadash, and double honor to my apostle, elders, great millstone, who I learned the truth from, will teach them real well, teaching 100% truth, peace, love, blessing, salutation, all you sincere Akim Agwaf, to listen in on this truth and pushing in the truth, trying to make your call of election sure. Shalom to the brothers that pushing the truth throughout the four corners of the earth, and shalom to the hopeful elect. May the call of election be upon our homes. To the next time I want to